Hey guys, Deirdre here, all things art and books. How you doing? Well, I'm starting the new year with a new watercolour and ink painting, and what you saw me doing there was soaking the page with water and then dropping some water-based inks into the paper while it was still wet, and now adding some watercolour paint. And this is my first layer. I don't know, this is an intuitive piece of work for the most part. I knew I wanted to do something underwater, but I just let my imagination go with it. I let it dry and then started to sketch the dolphins in. Then I mixed up a wash of, I think it's Indigo Blue and Payne's Grey for just a very first layer on the dolphins themselves, and just added that to all three of them. So at this point, although I decided that I wanted the whole thing underwater, I also wanted to do it as like a full landscape that really shouldn't be under the water, and go down that whole surreal fantasy route that I love. And I decided now to I was wanting to put a lake somewhere in it and a waterfall. And I remember seeing a documentary one time, and this is where sometimes reality is stranger than fiction. And I remember seeing a documentary on, I don't know if it was one of the kind of documentary channels that you get, and it was about an underwater lake. And there is an underwater lake, I can't remember what part of the world it is, but it does exist, where this lake is on the seabed or the ocean floor, and the sea or the ocean is on top of it, and they meet, but they don't mix. And this lake has a surface to it and is completely separate from the ocean above it, even though they meet. And it was the most bizarre thing I've ever seen, and yet it actually does exist. And this was this kind of thinking when I'm starting to do this painting now, where I've just added the lake and the little piece of the waterfall, where I want this whole thing to now appear as if it's underwater, even though this is surreal and it's fantasy. But I have taken the inspiration from that documentary that I saw many, many years ago, because I just find it absolutely fascinating, and I'm sure somebody could Google it and tell me where it is. But yeah, so this is where I was going with this at this stage. So just including a couple of little real-time clips for you here. Here I've added the waterfall, but now I want a little bit of contrast, and I'm adding some dark colours, a little bit of shadow in behind the waterfall, and also in between it as well, to signify rocks and shadows and give it a little bit of depth too. So I hope you enjoy the real-time clips as well. So here I'm just taking a damp brush, no colour on it at all, and just scrubbing out and lifting out a little bit of the colour that I've already put there. And that gives that kind of misty, ethereal effect, which I love, and is also real. You can see some of the colour coming off there onto my tissue. And it just gives that kind of misty, ethereal look that is so beautiful in fantasy and surreal work. And yeah, I just like that. By the way, the waterfall was done in white gouache, so that goes nicely over the top of the watercolour paint. I'll list the colours that I used down below. Adding a few highlights to the dolphins with the white gouache now, and I also used the white gouache for painting some kind of coral type around the sides and across, just to add that little bit of interest. I also blend it out later on. I just keep layering and layering and layering. A few splashes as well. I decided that that magenta ink blotch that I had put on earlier on looked a bit like a large boulder or rock, so that's why I started to put a few highlights up along the bottom of it in the white gouache to sort of signify the water lapping up against it. Now adding some ripples to the water below the waterfall there, just to give that idea of reflection, using the white gouache, which was fantastic for that. Adding some more details, more branches, more coral, just gradually building up more and more and more and more layers. And it's so important to remember to darken your shadows as well. Just go between dark and light, and that's how you'll get the depth into your painting. So what I'm starting to do now is one of the pieces that I really love, and that's add the bubbles. Now, people get a bit scared of that, but it's really not too difficult. You do a half semicircle on the top in a dark colour. I'm using a mixture again of Indigo Blue and Payne's Grey, and then a half semicircle on the bottom of the white gouache, and then you start to blend it out. And once you've blended it out, making sure you can still see the background in behind, you add a highlight top and bottom, and that's your bubble. So I just continued this all over the painting at random. And adding some more highlights with the white gouache on the water, both in the lake above the waterfall and on the water beneath, on the little pool, pond, whatever you like, beneath the waterfall as well. White gouache will tend to dry a little bit darker, so sometimes you might find you have to do 2 or 3 layers, but it comes up great anyway. And I still decided that it needed even more bubbles, so I just kept going. There's no rules, just keep going until you're happy with what you've done. And we are done for this one, so I hope you enjoyed that, guys. And remember, all the paints and colours that I used I've listed down below, and I'll see you again next time. See you very soon. Okay, bye for now.